Finally, it's here. A complete roster of all films Marvel or Marvel-related from 1944 to date in chronological order. Perhaps if you've always wanted a definitive list in YouTube video format of all the wonderful films Marvel and Stan Lee have gifted us, then you're at the right place. And please, if we missed anything, feel free to tell us about it by leaving your comments below. So let's get on with it, shall we? 1. Captain America 1944. This represented the first ever theatrical portrayal of a Marvel superhero, and Marvel was still referred to as Timely Comics at the time. That's how old this production by Republic Studios is. It was a serial consisting of 15 chapters and was quite expensive to put together. Captain America is a district attorney named Grant Gardner who is pitted against Scarab, whose day job is a museum curator named Dr. Cyrus Maldor. So the accompanying objects of interest he is after are the dynamic vibrator and electronic firebolt, which are supposed to be super weapons. According to the plot, everyone knew who Captain America really was. On the flip side, he was played by Dick Purcell. 2. The Incredible Hulk, 1977 through 1982. This comprised 5 seasons with 80 episodes total. The pilot was a 2-hour origin story, and it went like this. Dr. David Banner was a widowed scientist who traveled across America in nomadic style. He tried to help people wherever he found himself, but he had a secret. Like Jekyll and Hyde, he could transform into an angry monster, which we now know as the Hulk. He is also actively trying to cure himself, and he survived on the pilgrimage by doing odd jobs as he moved from place to place. The villain in this case is Jack McGee, a reporter who is desperate to expose Banner for the sake of a career promotion. 3. Doctor Strange, 1978 TV movie. The film was created as a pilot for a possible series run that was never approved, so all we got was the roughly 2-hour pilot. A sorceress named Morgan Le Fay had possessed a woman named Clea Lake, so the Sorcerer Supreme, with the help of Wong, must exorcise her. Lindner and Wong then make contact with a psychiatrist named Dr. Stephen Strange, who is next in line to become Sorcerer Supreme. But Strange still needs some convincing about the eternal battle between good and evil within the magical world, which is unbeknownst to the rest of the populace. No doubt at its core, the Doctor Strange story has mostly remained the same over the years. 4. The Punisher, 1989. This marks the genesis of the anti-hero trope on screen, and the trademark skull t-shirt is not used here. The film was shot in Sydney, Australia in 1989, and as usual, the story follows Frank Castle as the ever-secretive vigilante in his bid to take out criminal elements of the city. He was a cop in his former life, and his family was murdered while Frank himself was left for dead. It is under these clandestine circumstances that he wages war against the overlords of crime in this city. The Punisher's base is a sewer, and he has a trusted ally, a man named Shake, who is a former stage actor with a penchant for speaking in rhyme. 5. Captain America, 1990. The main elements of this story are similar to Captain America as we know him today. Steve Rogers is polio-stricken and becomes a super soldier when he is injected with a serum. His doctor gets assassinated before she can replicate the experimental results. Red Skull is a mutant boy who grew up in fascist Italy and was supposed to be the genetic source for all super soldiers of the time. At some point, Captain America becomes frozen in Arctic ice when he deflects a missile. He is revived decades later, in this case in 1993. His first love is older and has a daughter now. Also, Red Skull is trying to overthrow all governments, etc. 6. The Fantastic Four, 1994. This Fantastic Four movie was an unreleased low-budget film. It was completed in 1994. The plot elements have always been the same. The film begins with Reed Richards and Victor Von Doom as friends at college who dare to experiment on a passing comet. Doom gets lost, and Reed presumes he is dead. Later on in life, when Reed has become a full-fledged scientist, he revisits his comet experiment in the company of 3 others who will become the Fantastic Four after being exposed to cosmic rays. Somehow, Von Doom also survived all those years on the same comet. 7. X-Men 2000. Finally, a live-action portrayal of the X-Men was introduced to the movie-watching public. It was groundbreaking at the time as a big-budget live-action adaptation of the X-Men from the comics. It was produced by 20th Century Fox and released in the year 2000. The film was a critical and financial success, and its popularity revived the superhero movie genre. Fox would eventually sell the rights to the franchise to Disney so it could come under the Marvel umbrella. Bryan Singer directed it as well as the sequel released in 2003. Spider-Man 2002. This is where Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man took off. It would establish one of Marvel's most iconic heroes on the movie screen. The Spider-Man movie was produced under the Sony distribution umbrella. Ultimately, it was yet another imprint that had to be acquired by Disney via the Marvel franchise. Tobey Maguire even made an appearance in Tom Holland's Spider-Man as a Spider-Man version from another dimension in the multiverse. But again, here's where it all started. 9. Daredevil 2003. This version of the Daredevil was played by Ben Affleck. It had its high points and was a decent enough production. Colin Farrell plays the villain Bullseye, while Jennifer Garner plays Elektra. She also dies at some point. Elektra actually plays alongside Daredevil as a love interest. She even goes as far as uncovering his secret identity. It's probably around the time Jennifer Garner and Ben Affleck were dating in real life too. 10. X2, X-Men United 2003. Was yet another great hero movie that captivated fans at the time of its release. X2 was again directed by Bryan Singer and featured an ensemble cast. It got its inspiration from the graphic novel God Loves But Man Kills. The story revolves around a character named Colonel William Stryker, who devises a plan to reverse engineer the cerebral chamber. This is so he can build one to locate and destroy mutants. The plan starts with Nightcrawler being hypnotized to kill the president, who then authorizes an invasion of Xavier's school. 11. Hulk 2003. Bruce Banner was played by Eric Bana in this installment before the MCU era. Note the similarity in their names, or more like life imitating art. That aside, it also starred Jennifer Connelly as his love interest. The story arc involved another actor who played Bruce Banner's father. He was the first to get infected by the gamma radiation and was a scientist himself. He also killed Bruce's mother by accident. It's probably why Bruce had a lot of repressed anger. As usual, General Ross was a feature, but critics said the film lacked a little vitality with no action scenes. However, it did relatively well at the box office. 12. Spider-Man 2 2004. Spider-Man 2 was the second installment in the Spider-Man film series. It saw the return of its original cast of actors, and Alfred Molina played Dr. Octopus as the main villain. It was set 2 years after the first, and we find Peter Parker struggling to balance his personal life with a superhero persona. The film grossed over $783 million at the worldwide box office. It also won the Oscar for Best Visual Effects. During its teleplay, Peter Parker is also embroiled in trying to win Mary Jane back after constantly misfiring because his Spider-Man persona has him distracted. 13. Elektra 2005. Elektra was played by Jennifer Garner in this one. It was really a dark portrayal of the world of Elektra, like in the comic books. It was also a spin-off to the Daredevil movie released in 2003. In that one, Elektra died, and with this one, she was revived by a character known as Stick, who hones her assassination skills. The movie was a flop both critically and financially, grossing only about $95 million worldwide against a budget of about $82 million. 14. X-Men: The Last Stand 2006. This one had the X-Men divided over a cure for the mutant gene. It kind of reminds us of how people hated to take the COVID-19 vaccines. Filming started in August 2005 and lasted until January 2006. The total budget amounted to $210 million, making it the most expensive film made up to that time. 11 separate companies worked on the visual effects alone. It was first premiered at the Cannes Film Festival and then released to the public in May 2006. It grossed almost $460 million at the worldwide box office, making it one of the top 10 highest grossing movies of all time. 15. Spider-Man 3 2007. This would be the final movie in the Tobey Maguire era of Spider-Man. All of the movies in the trilogy were directed by Sam Raimi. Also, we are introduced to the Sam Manipulator. James Franco also returns as Harry Osborn, who is still bitter at Spider-Man, but the screenplay involves yet another twist, and it's the introduction of the alien symbiote that infects Spider-Man. But Spider-Man is able to extricate himself, and the symbiote then moves on to Eddie Brock, who is a rival photographer to Peter Parker, and he essentially becomes Venom. 16. Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer 2007. The classic villain Galactus and his right-hand man, the Silver Surfer, were part of the plot for this one. It was a sequel to the first film released in 2005. Critics say it was slightly better than the first, though its ticket sales were lower. A third film was planned, but this was eventually shelved, citing the relatively poor performance of its predecessors. However, a new Fantastic Four movie would be released in 2015 that was also received poorly by critics and audiences alike. Disney eventually acquired the rights to the franchise from Fox along with the X-Men and Deadpool. 17. Iron Man 2008. This is where the MCU properly started with the introduction of Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man. While in captivity, he would create a crude version of the ever-popular armored suit. After escaping his terrorist captors, Tony Stark, the world-famous industrialist, would return to exact revenge with a far more advanced suit, becoming Iron Man. This was the first film that unofficially signaled Phase 1 of the MCU, and it grossed about $585 million at the box office. 18. The Incredible Hulk, 2008. Edward Norton started out playing the Hulk, but the role was later transferred to Mark Ruffalo. A lot of post-production CGI was used to complete the film, and there were over 700 visual effects shots to work through and fine-tune. It was also part of Phase 1 of the MCU, but turned out to be the lowest-grossing film of the franchise at around $265 million. Norton was taken off the project for subsequent films because of an editorial disagreement. Mark Ruffalo was introduced in the 2012 Avengers movie as the new Hulk actor. 19. X-Men Origins Wolverine, 2009. Characters like Deadpool were featured in this one. This is when he was still a regular, normal assassin named Wade Wilson. Sabretooth was also portrayed as an ally of Wolverine until they fell out. X-Men Origins Wolverine was not in any way a sequel to the previous X-Men movies before it, but rather a sort of prequel featuring Team X. This was before Wolverine's bones got blasted with adamantium, so it was set 20 years earlier when Wolverine first encountered William Stryker. It also highlighted Wolverine's relationship with Sabretooth. 20. Iron Man 2, 2010. In this one, Iron Man would face off with Mickey Rourke's character called Whiplash. Iron Man would meet his match both in terms of brains and brawn. It is set 6 months after Iron Man 1, where Tony Stark has revealed his identity as the armored hero while suffering some personal health issues with his palladium core. Now the government is after his groundbreaking technology and asks him to hand over the suit to them. In a congressional hearing, Stark disgraces a rival from Hammer Industries for his attempts to replicate the technology. In the middle of all of this, an old Stark family enemy emerges and sees an opportunity for revenge. He is hired by Hammer Industries to create a replica suit to fulfill a government contract. 21. Thor, 2011-2013. Thor is yet another iconic figure making an on-screen debut. Ultimately, his storyline would tie in with the rest of the MCU as the Marvel writers and producers saw fit. Jane Foster is introduced as his love interest. After Thor starts an old war, he is banished from Asgard by his father, Odin. He ends up on Earth without his powers or his hammer. Meanwhile, his brother Loki plots to take over the rulership of Asgard. Separately, the sequel was subtitled Dark World and was released in 2013 following the introduction of the Avengers as a collective in 2012. In it, Thor and Loki form a difficult alliance to defeat the Dark Elves. 22. X-Men First Class, 2011. This was supposed to take us back to the early days when Professor Xavier and Magneto were younger, and the idea of gathering all mutants was just forming. It's set during the Cold War era amidst the threats of a nuclear apocalypse. As such, the story is set in 1962 during the Cuban Missile Crisis. It mainly focuses on the younger versions of Charles Xavier and Eric Lehnsherr, aka Magneto, and how it all started towards the creation of the X-Men and the Brotherhood of Mutants, respectively. Also, the common villain is Sebastian Shaw of the Hellfire Club. 23. Captain America: The First Avenger, 2011. We are taken back to the middle of World War II around 1944. Steve Rogers is a scrawny but ambitious kid who is desperate to contribute to the war effort. He ends up in the Super Soldier program and becomes Captain America, and Tony Stark's grandfather gives him the iconic shield. This new super soldier, Captain America, is vested with stopping the Red Skull, played by Hugo Weaving, and his Hydra organization from harnessing the power of the Tesseract for world dominance. But Cap ends up being preserved in ice until a future time. 24. The Avengers, 2012. The Avengers Collective is officially introduced as a group, having been put together by no one other than Nick Fury on behalf of the S.H.I.E.L.D. spy agency to battle Loki and his invading aliens. In the film, Nick Fury recruits Tony Stark, Steve Rogers, Bruce Banner, Thor, Natasha Romanoff, and Clint Barton to form a team capable of defending the Earth. The film grossed about $1.2 billion at the box office, and those are big numbers, if we may say so ourselves. 25. The Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2, 2012 and 2014. Andrew Garfield kicked off this new era of Spidey movies, and he would go on to star in a duology of movies like Tobey Maguire before him. Gwen Stacy was also introduced as Peter Parker's love interest. The story begins with a preteen named Peter playing hide-and-seek with his father, Richard, when he accidentally stumbles upon his father's secret study. It has just been ransacked. Peter's father and mother decide they have to run, and so for his safety, they leave Peter in the care of his aunt and uncle. Peter's parents later die in an orchestrated plane crash because of what they know. 26. Iron Man 3, 2013. Iron Man would face a classic foe from the comics in the person of Mandarin. Iron Man 3 follows up on the Avengers story, and Tony Stark wrestles with the consequences of the big Avengers reveal to the world. Mandarin is supposed to be a terrorist kingpin attempting to attack the US. In the end, Tony questions the responsibility he now carries as a superhero in the public eye. 27. The Wolverine, 2013. The plot puts Wolverine in Japan just when the nuclear bombs go off. Wolverine returns years later to meet his old friend. At this point, Wolverine is still struggling with guilt over Jean's death, which he was responsible for in the X-Men Last Stand movie. Also, at some point in the movie, he will lose his healing powers while fighting off a gang of samurai. So he is pushed to his physical and emotional limit, and this experience will come to shape his existence going forward. 28. Captain America: The Winter Soldier, 2014. Chris Evans makes a comeback as Captain America alongside the Winter Soldier, played by Sebastian Stan. It follows up on Captain America trying to adjust to modern life out there in Washington, D.C. But a new threat interrupts his vacation. Together with the Black Widow and Falcon, they face off against the threat, which turns out to be Steve's old mate, Buck, who was long presumed dead. He is now a brainwashed assassin codenamed the Winter Soldier. 29. X-Men: Days of Future Past, 2014. An ageless Wolverine is central to this plot, where mutants will be hunted down at a future time. So they must go back in time to stop their downfall as a mutant race. Wolverine is sent back to the 70s to warn a younger Professor Xavier about the coming future. This film sees the original X-Men assemble and those from X-Men First Class being cast together to pull off this plan. They team up across both time periods to stop the development of Sentinels that might wipe out the mutant race in the distant future. Peter Dinklage also features in the film. 30. Guardians of the Galaxy Volumes 1, 2, and 3, 2014, 2017, 2023. Peter Quill, aka Star-Lord, and his team of alien operatives are introduced for the first time. They will also play a major role in the Avengers movies. In Volume 2, Star-Lord gets to meet his father, who has dark plans for his son. The Guardians of the Galaxy team consists of Raccoon, Groot, Gamora, and Drax. Later on, they would be joined by Mantis. At some point, Gamora would be sacrificed by Thanos, her stepfather, in order to obtain the Soul Stone. More recently, a Christmas special was released that had the real Kevin Bacon being kidnapped. 31. Avengers: Age of Ultron, 2015. The Avengers saga continues with Ultron, an AI created by Tony Stark and Bruce Banner, an era that gets a mind of its own and wants to overthrow the world. As usual, the film came with an ensemble cast. Ultron plans to bring about world peace by causing human extinction. It subsequently succeeds in building itself a physical form as it goes on a rampage. The Avengers have to unite to take it down. Age of Ultron unofficially started Phase 2 of the MCU. 32. Ant-Man 2015. Ant-Man and Hank Pym are introduced to the movie-watching public. It's quite the story, and the visual effects serve the production well. Scott Lang takes over the responsibility of the super suit from Hank Pym and helps him defeat a protege who is planning to sell the replica suit to Hydra and the Ten Rings crime organization. He also connects with Hank's long-lost wife in the quantum realm. This prompts Hank and his daughter to hope to devise a rescue contraption. Scott is also approached by the Avengers. 33. Fantastic Four, 2015. An entirely new set of actors are chosen to play our favorite foursome in this reboot. This feels like a standalone movie not necessarily tied to the MCU. Its storyline involved four highly intelligent young adults who managed to build the interdimensional capsule, etc. It was a box office flop and barely broke even. Yet another reboot is scheduled to be released in 2025 within the MCU. 34. Deadpool, 2016. This is for a more mature audience. Deadpool is supposed to be an anti-hero too. He originally belonged to the X-Men franchise. His actual name is Wade Wilson, a former special operations guy turned mercenary. We first saw him as Wade Wilson in X-Men Origins. Since then, he has entered a rogue experiment program, which he hoped would keep him alive from cancer. Instead, he was turned into a freak with accelerated healing abilities. He is known as the Merc with a Mouth, for a good reason, because of his twisted and dark sense of humor, which he always mouths off without any chill. His first mission is to hunt down the people responsible for destroying his life. 35. Captain America: Civil War, 2016. This has the Avengers politically divided in the aftermath of the destruction of Sokovia. It's all about the international oversight of the Avengers. Captain America and those on his side want free reign to protect the Earth and its people. Tony Stark, on the other hand, wants the Avengers to sign the agreement. A few Avengers follow him as the two teams trade words and blows. At an airport scene, Spider-Man is introduced to the Avengers by Tony Stark and immediately thrown into the fray. Ant-Man joins Captain America's side too. Cap also reunites with his old friend Buck and tries to help him. 36. X-Men Apocalypse 2016. A prehistoric villain emerges to destroy the Earth, and the X-Men must rise to the challenge. He is an ancient mutant known as In-Sabanur, which is translated as Apocalypse. In the year 1983, he was accidentally awakened. Then he chooses 4 other mutants who are supposed to be the 4 Horsemen. With their help, he plans to wipe out modern civilization and take over the world. The X-Men ultimately stop him. Apocalypse is the first and most powerful mutant who has amassed the powers of many other mutants over the ages to become immortal and invincible. Upon being awakened in a modern world, he immediately hates it. 37. Doctor Strange 2016. The release of this film will make it 38 years since we last saw Doctor Strange in the movies, and it's worth the wait. He is played by Benedict Cumberbatch. In it, Dr. Stephen Strange, a neurosurgeon, gets involved in a car accident. Afterwards, he loses his job because he can't use his hands. Seeking medical help, he ends up with an unconventional solution represented by Kamal Tag. It's an enclave for mystical healing, but also the front line against magical attacks from the evil and dark forces threatening our world. And so, Doctor Strange becomes the Sorcerer Supreme. 38. Logan 2017. Logan is an aging Wolverine in the future vested with the responsibility of protecting a young mutant, at the end of which, he dies. This movie marks the completion of the Wolverine standalone trilogy, and is also the 10th movie in the X-Men franchise. It is set in the future, where an older Wolverine, or Logan in any case, is caring for an ailing Professor X at a Mexican hideout. But his secret existence is interrupted by the arrival of a young mutant named Laura, who seeks protection. Mutant DNA is being injected into children to test its efficacy. Afterwards, the children are executed. A nurse helps Laura and a few other children escape, thus setting up the story. 39. Spider-Man Homecoming 2017. Spider-Man is back as Tom Holland, following the acquisition of the Spider-Man story rights by Marvel, which was supposed to pave the way for more MCU appearances of the Spidey character. We follow the story of young Peter Parker after his brief debut in Captain America: The Civil War. He realizes he is now a superhero even as he tries to lead a normal life as your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Tony Stark shows up in his life as a mentor. In between all of that, Spider-Man faces a new foe in the person of the Vulture. It just so happens that he is the father of Peter's prom date, but that doesn't make it easier to nab him. Also, the Vulture got there by stealing alien technology recovered from the alien invasion. 40. Thor Ragnarok 2017. Apparently Thor is reprised in this one, where he is held captive in a gladiatorial fighting syndicate far away from Asgard. He faces the Hulk in an epic gladiator battle. Meanwhile, Loki has assumed the throne in Asgard, and Hela, his sister, has plans of her own too. Thor is being held by a character known as the Grand Master, and in order to be set free, he must compete as a gladiator or risk a breakout with the help of Valkyrie, as portrayed by Tessa Thompson. The film was directed by Taika Waititi, who took a more comedic approach to scripting and filming. 41. Black Panther 2018. In Africa, the Black Panther emerges. He is played by Chadwick Boseman, who has since left us. R.I.P. The film features T'Challa as Black Panther after the events of Captain America: Civil War. Remember that his father was allegedly assassinated by the Winter Soldier, who was eventually exonerated. So T'Challa returns home to Wakanda to become king. However, he is challenged by Killmonger, a long-listed citizen of Wakanda who wants to exact revenge for the death of his own father. He openly guns for the throne too, so he can abort the isolationist status of Wakanda. 42. Avengers: Infinity War 2018. We first meet Thanos, the villain who will go on to wipe out half of all life in the universe. Up to this point, the saga has been built up for 10 years, culminating in this very installment of the Avengers sub-franchise. Thanos has begun collecting the Infinity Stones from far-flung locations across the universe. And as mentioned, the ultimate goal is the snap. Thanos succeeds, and in so doing, he takes out half of all life in the universe for the sake of restoring balance. He also sets up the story for an epic finale where the Avengers don't make the same mistake twice. 43. Deadpool 2 2018. Deadpool returns and is actually able to lead a group of individuals. We didn't see that coming. In the film, Deadpool leads the X-Force to protect a young mutant from a time-traveling soldier. The X-Force includes Coliseum and 2 other female protégés hanging around the mutant school, where it seems everyone went on their spring break. Together, they help Deadpool recover and fight the new enemy. In the end, all sides reconcile, as is typical of the not-so-serious Deadpool trope. 44. Ant-Man and the Wasp, 2018. Hank Pym's daughter becomes the Wasp after her mother. She has also a love interest for Scott Lang's Ant-Man. Ant-Man and the Wasp work with Hank Pym to rescue his wife, Janet Van Dyne, who got lost in the quantum realm many years ago. But first, Scott has to escape the conditions of his house arrest following the aftermath of the Captain America Civil War airport incident. 45. Venom, 2018. Venom gets his own movie in which Tom Hardy plays Eddie Brock. Eddie tries to revive his journalistic career after a scandal by investigating an institution known as the Life Foundation. These guys are experimenting on humans with a symbiote acquired from space. Brock gets in the way and is ultimately infected by the symbiote. It grants him superpowers as long as his body remains its host. The film garnered as much as $850 million at the box office, and a trilogy of films was originally planned. This is also another franchise Disney hoped to acquire from Sony, just like Spider-Man. 46. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, 2018. This is an animated feature-length film that tells the story of Miles Morales, a black variant of Spider-Man. Also, a trilogy of films is planned. Miles Morales, as the new Spider-Man, joins forces with other Spider-Man variants from random parallel universes to stop the Kingpin from destroying the fabric of reality. The film was the first non-Disney or Pixar film to win Best Animated Feature since 2011. It also did well at the award ceremonies for that year. 47. Captain Marvel 2019. We're introduced to Captain Marvel, and the story is set in the 1990s. She becomes Nick Fury's inspiration for the Avengers initiative at some future time. The story follows Carol Danvers during a time when the Earth is caught between the galactic conflict of 2 alien civilizations. She is accidentally exposed to raw energy from the Tessera and becomes Captain Marvel. She subsequently suffers amnesia, but eventually returns to Earth and meets Nick Fury. This movie will be followed by The Marvels, a sequel to be released in 2023. 48. Avengers Endgame 2019. The title says it all. The Avengers defeat Thanos, but at a steep price. Tony Stark dies, and Captain America travels back in time to live a fulfilled life with his first love. This more or less marks the end of Phase 4 of the MCU. The surviving members of the Avengers, following the snap from the Infinity War, attempt to reverse it. In a last stand, they take on Thanos and defeat him. There is a well-loved scene where all seems lost as Thanos gets the upper hand, but help comes in the nick of time to turn the tide. Endgame represents the penultimate conclusion to 22 Marvel films that have built up to that point. 49. X-Men Dark Phoenix 2019. This one was a bit under the radar, but it's a passable movie nonetheless, depending on who you ask. For instance, it barely broke even. This is the origin story of Jean Grey. She was exposed to dark matter during a space mission authorized by the President. This enhanced her powers and made them harder to control, and coupled with her personal demons, she became a lot more dangerous to both allies and enemies alike. The movie represents the conclusion to 20 years of X-Men themed movies. 50. Spider-Man Far From Home 2019. Again, Tom Holland gives a stellar performance as Spider-Man, who has teenage problems of his own. It's the second film in the Homecoming series, so Peter gets on a school trip with his friends to Europe. However, Nick Fury interrupts the fun and recruits him to fight off the elements, which are really a decoy created by Mysterio. 51. Black Widow 2021. Natasha, or the Black Widow, died in the Infinity War movie, so this is sort of a flashback involving her personal war against the Red Room. As such, the movie is a sequel to Captain America: The Civil War, but a prequel to Avengers: Infinity War. It's a sort of spy thriller, and we know Black Widow to be a highly trained operative. She must confront her dark past as an operative, which was long before she became an Avenger. 52. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings 2021. We head to China and Florida next, where Sean must reconcile with his past in order to responsibly wield the power of the Ten Rings. Wenwu, his father, is the leader of the Ten Rings organization. When Shang-Chi, or Sean as he wishes to be called, turned 14, his father sent him on a mission to assassinate his mother's killer. All his life, he had been trained for it, but when the deed was done, he became disillusioned and ran away to America. His father found him, and so Sean was drawn back into the life he left before. A sequel to the movie was announced for 2021. 53. Eternals 2021. This is the prequel of all prequels to the MCU. It was set as far back as 5000 BC during the creation of the universe. It certainly made for an interesting story in relation to the MCU. It also featured an ensemble cast and was directed by a woman named Chloe Zhao. The Eternals are human-like ancient aliens that have been living among men with a charge to only intervene in human affairs when a race called the Deviants threatened the Earth. Even the snap from the Infinity Wars didn't affect them, and yet they couldn't intervene. However, they were forced out of the shadows when one of their own was mysteriously killed. 54. Spider-Man No Way Home 2021. Spider-Man asks Doctor Strange to cast a spell so everyone forgets him, but it results in disastrous consequences. For the first time, Spider-Man's real identity is revealed by Mysterio in the previous film as his parting shot. This becomes a huge problem because it could put his life and the lives of those he loves in jeopardy. So Peter enlists the help of Doctor Strange to bring things back to how they were. But things go sideways when an interdimensional crack is opened. All of Spider-Man's former enemies return in one fell swoop. Fortunately, Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield come with their own versions of Spider-Man to help out. 55. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness 2022. This follows the story of Doctor Strange trying to contain the Scarlet Witch and save a teenage girl with interdimensional powers. Her name is America Chavez, and she is supposed to be a member of the Young Avengers from the comic books. In the film, Strange tries to restore order to the world, but Strange himself might turn out to be the threat the world doesn't need right now. Heroes from another dimension share the same sentiments and are not about to let Doctor Strange out of their sight when he pays them a visit. I guess you could say that great power comes with great responsibility. 56. Black Panther Wakanda Forever 2022. Black Panther Wakanda Forever opens with the mourning of the death of King T'Challa from undisclosed causes. Queen Ramonda and Shuri take on the responsibility of ruling the secretive nation and protecting its interests. The Queen even attends a UN meeting where she announces that it will be business as usual. Wakanda will not share its vibranium with the world. Ironheart, who is quite a decent Iron Man copycat and fan, is convinced to make a vibranium detector, and Scrupulous Elements use her technology to discover a rare deposit of vibranium under the sea. So enters Namor, a sea mutant and a leader in his own right. A conflict arises between Wakanda and the Sea People led by Namor. Shuri and her people think the vibranium is stolen, while Namor just wants to protect his people from the fallout of underwater mining. It's a classic case of following the wrong lead. The film was nominated multiple times at multiple award ceremonies, and it managed to win a few, like the Oscar, for Best Costume Design. It also won 2 Critics' Choice Awards and a Golden Globe. 57. Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania 2023. In this one, we have the whole family duly represented. Hank and his wife are reunited. Scott Lang and Hope Van Dyne are romantically involved. Cassie, Scott's daughter, is all grown up. However, she is tending to become a problem child. She has been arrested a few times, and when Scott confronts her at dinner in the presence of everyone, there is an awkward silence. It seems they are all hiding something from him. It turns out that Hank has allowed her to experiment with PIM particles. She may even have an Ant-Man suit of her own. In the next few scenes, she tries to impress by showing off her quantum project. Janet asks her to shut it down, but it sucks them all into the quantum realm, where they must collectively face Kang the Conqueror. Kang himself is trapped there by the Council of Kangs. It's a council that controls time, and this variant of Kang was banished into the quantum realm by his mates for destroying many worlds. Quantumania officially kicks off Phase 5. 58. MCU Phase 5, 2023 and 2024. These are the following: Ant-Man Quantumania, Secret Invasion, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, The Marvels, Captain America, New World Order, Loki, Ironheart, and Daredevil, Born Again. Here is a refresher on what this phase will look like on screen. We've already mentioned Ant-Man Quantumania. These are the subsequent movies for the phase. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, 2023. The Guardians of the Galaxy return in a 3rd installment after the Christmas special, which, quite frankly, doesn't count in real terms. This time around, Rocket is in trouble, and something from his past has caught up with him. So the team must come together to save him. Quill is still reeling from the loss of Gamora, but spoiler alert, we saw her in the theatrical trailer. Is this a hint that she'll be back? We can only wait and see. A good precedent would be the Black Widow. Both Gamora and she died in similar fashions when they were sacrificed for the Soul Infinity Stone. From the Christmas special, we know Quill and the team have transformed Nowhere into their home, so good for them. The Marvels 2023. This movie has Captain Marvel, Miss Marvel, and Captain Monica Rambeau collaborating to contain a fissure in the universe. It all starts with Carol having to shoulder the responsibility of a destabilized universe after she defeats the Supreme Intelligence and the Kree. All these women become somewhat connected, irrespective of the fact that Rambeau and Carol are cousins, so watch out for this one. Captain America: The New World Order 2024. The Falcon, who is played by Anthony Mackie, fully assumes his new role as Captain America, and the CIA becomes the new bad guys led by Valentina. They are actively recruiting super soldiers to perhaps invade Kenya for some of that precious vibranium. Harrison Ford may play General Thunderbolt Ross, who has since become president. So between Val and himself, that sets things up nicely. Thunderbolts 2024. Thunderbolts is another name for the team Valentina is assembling. Already she has Yelena, who is the Black Widow's sister, and John Walker, the disgraced Captain America. Other members of this special team will be revealed either in the New World Order movie or in the same Thunderbolts movie. Blade 2024. All we can say is that the lead character will be played by Mahershala Ali. Deadpool 3 2024. Deadpool returns with Wolverine in tow. Hugh Jackman finally decided to do one more Wolverine movie. The television series to be released in this phase include Secret Invasion 2023. Of course, it will feature Nick Fury and his alliance with the Skrull. Amongst these shape-shifting aliens, you have some bad eggs who have managed to infiltrate the governments of the world. We can't wait to see how that pans out. Loki 2021 through TBA. A second season of Loki will be released soon, and it features Mobius and Loki on the trail of a variant of Kang. Ironheart 2023. Ironheart will also get her show. Riri Williams is a young black female inventor who is just as good as Iron Man. The other series in Phase 5 are Echo, Agatha Harkness, and Daredevil Born Again. 59. MCU Phase 6, 2024 through 2026. These include a Fantastic Four reboot, Avengers: The Kang Dynasty, and Avengers: Secret Wars. So that's it, folks, and as Stan Lee would say, Excelsior! Remember to subscribe and hit that notification button for us. Thanks for watching, and bye.